the podcast with Dan Bardell and Greg Evans.
Hello, this is 1874, the podcast with Dan Bardell and Greg Evans. As you just heard, this show is sponsored by NordVPN, and if you want to hear a little bit more about what they do, there'll be some more information later on in the show. I would give you a bit more jazz about them now, but the information that's usually in front of me seems to have disappeared, so I can't do that. I know you get 4 months for free and some other stuff, but yeah, I can't actually see it. Greg, can you see it? Can you tell everyone what they might get?
Huge discount plus 4 months free. Is that 1874? NordVPN.
.io/NordVPN. Yep, there we go. No future for either of us in the news reading stratosphere there, but actually it has just genuinely disappeared off my screen just as we started. We are here as always on a Monday to talk about Aston Villa's weekend fixture, and this one wasn't a great one. Well, it wasn't a great ending anyway. I'm still very upset about it. Ruined my weekend, it did, Greg. Nottingham Forest 2, Aston Villa 1. How did you see it?
An unusual collapse from Villa, I think we can call it. Yeah.
Is it? I was thinking about this. Is it unusual? It feels like we're not seeing out games as well this season as we have done for the 18 months previous under Emery.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by unusual, because I think if you look across the period of Emery, Villa have seen out games very well. So it's like I'm very confident when I'm watching Villa and they're 1-0 up, and I think that's job done almost. I'm very, very confident. Starting to lose confidence in that a little bit because of some of the results and performances this season. One real noticeable takeaway that I found in the game was that if you just cast your mind back to when Emery first came into Villa, and they would take the lead and they'd see out the game pretty well. A tactic that he often used was to move the fullbacks, in the closing stages of the game when they're holding on to the lead, move the fullbacks into centre-back positions and then pull a midfielder back into fullback. So you're effectively changing a 4-man defence and making it a 6-man defence. I'm just not seeing that as often from Villa anymore. Perhaps it's because they want to be a bit more expansive. They're not having to, or they don't feel like they have to defend as much because they're no longer the underdogs in more games than not because of their status in the Premier League now. But I feel like those real basic defending elements of Emery and the willingness to keep the ball out the net has disappeared a little bit, really. Just didn't see it as often. And, you look back at, we can go through the game shortly, but that was just one of the main takeaways, I thought.
Yeah, I suppose in this case, we're already playing 3 centre-backs and 2 wing-backs. So essentially, you've got a 5-man defence there. On this occasion, anyway.
But for me, they weren't in defence, those wing backs.
No, true. They're high, weren't they?
They were high. I'm not putting it on the fullbacks because perhaps that's what they've been told to do. But Cash wasn't dropping into that right. Cash used to be the right back that would slightly move into centre back. And someone, a player like McGinn or Bailey would move back into fullback and try and protect it. That's what I noticed in the early days of Emery. Not seeing it as much anymore. If that had been the case, it would have been on Digne and Maatsen later on, and Cash to drop back. But they weren't.
No, we'll try and go through the tail of the tape in chronological order shortly.
Let's do it.
But I guess Villa it was a blow before the game, really, wasn't it? Because Tyrone Mings was due to start instead of Pau Torres, but he'd felt ill all day, was ill in the warm-up and decided in the warm-up that he could no longer continue and wouldn't be able to take part in the game. Obviously, it's easy with hindsight to go back and look at it and say, it would have made a huge difference. Maybe those goals wouldn't have happened without Tyrone Mings. But he was obviously chosen for that game for a reason, and Forest are quite an athletic and physical side. Chris Wood is a big boy. Up top, Mings is our most physical defender, the most aerially dominant defender that Villa have first contact. We always talk about how good he is from them. There's no doubting that is a factor in the game, but actually, for 70 minutes, we've actually dealt with them pretty well.
Yeah, I thought, up until Villa scored, and in the sort of 10 minutes after Villa scored, 8 to 10 minutes after, thought they managed the game really well. And, it looked like they were going and win it. But the closing 15 minutes, which we'll look into a little bit closer shortly, was bad for Villa, And yeah, in hindsight, those were the moments where you needed Mings more than anything, because he would have headed balls out of the box. He would have given a bit more of a solidity in there, I think, because I still believe he's one of Villa's 2 best defenders, defenders. So he would have helped in those moments. And yeah, we knew that Emery was going to have to manage Mings' minutes after the what was the game he played, Dan? And he was excellent. I forgot. Brentford, yeah. We knew immediately after that he would start to be feeling a little sore because he hasn't played, many games, and that his minutes would have to be managed. But just really unfortunate that, illness ruled him out of this one, because it was the perfect game for him. It would have been, his bread and butter, I think.
Yeah, I thought in the first half it was a relatively cagey but even game. But I thought if one team kind of had the momentum and had the impetus, to me, it felt like it was Villa in that first half. And the huge talking point from the first half was the penalty that wasn't given on Morgan Rogers. Now, I accept that Morgan Rogers has kind of grabbed him first outside the box, but that felt a bit 50-50 for me. They were both kind of grabbing each other. When he's gone into the box, Rogers has freed himself from Elliot Anderson, and then there's kind of a second element after that initial grabbing that I'm talking about that they were both doing, where he has pulled him by his arm. For me, he has stopped his momentum. He stopped him doing what he wants to do on the ball. Rogers has gone down. It felt like a penalty to me, but I'm aware that in these situations I might be a little bit more biased than you. Yeah. And we very rarely agree on referee.
Very rarely agree. So
do we agree on this occasion?
We're coming towards the end of 2024, and I don't think we've agreed on a decision this season. But I agree with you on this occasion. I think it should have been a penalty.
Penalty. I mean, unfortunately for me, I've already spoken about this game today. I did the Guardian this morning, so I'm just repeating myself from what I've said on the Guardian this morning. But Elliot Anderson was obviously involved in the Forest second goal as well.
Yeah,
he's a good player, Elliot Anderson. Actually, I think he's a really, really good player. I think he'll play for England. He seems to have had a bit of refereeing immunity on Saturday. That has kind of been quite costly for Villa in the game.
Yeah. I mean, look, the foul or the challenge, or however you want to describe it, on Cash, what was a foul? That was even more ridiculous than the penalty, I thought. A bad few minutes, a bad 60 seconds for Cash, because it's just in the build up to that challenge, he actually failed to control the ball from Diego Carlos, and he'd kind of just turned his back, and then that allowed that following passage of play, which then Konza then won the ball back, passed it back to Cash, and he was fouled. That was a foul. It felt like Cash had just a bit of a bad moment in that game there, a 1 or 2 minute spell where he just sort of lost his composure a little bit, but it was a foul. And things like that can't go on, really. Villa were really, really aggrieved by it, very, very frustrated. They feel like a lot of decisions have started to go against them. And from a neutral side of things, I feel like last season a lot of decisions went in Villa's way, went in their favour. They seem to be getting on the right end of real close calls. This season it feels like it's the opposite. They're coming on the bad end of them, and starting to get frustrating. Within the corridors of Bodymoor Heath.
Oh, nice. I mean, it's sensational podcasting for me, saying that we'll take it in chronological order and then I'll jump
to the 93rd minute.
Unbelievable for me. But the 2 incidents, unfortunately, are related, aren't they? Because Elliot Anderson has got away with 2 things there for me. But the penalty, I just can't. Like, this is, I've said this to you a million times. I've said it to people who are watching and listening a million times probably, and everyone's probably sick of hearing it. But literally, what is the point of having VAR when they're so inclined to not overrule the referee because it's not clear and obvious or whatever? And then the wording of why the penalty wasn't given, I can't remember now. Again, sensational podcasting from me. I can't remember what exactly the wording is, but some of the excuses for things not being given on the Premier League match centre, talking in a bizarre language that I don't understand. In fact, you give your thoughts, and I'll try and find this language.
Yeah, I mean, look, my thoughts are pretty clear on it, and to be honest, I'm bored to death of talking about it. So I'm not going to spend too long on it, because it ruins my experience of watching football games actually now. So I've got 2 thoughts on it. I feel like the officials are always trying to find a way for the goal to be ruled out first and foremost when it goes to VAR. That's frustrating. And secondly, to be very, very clear on it, this was a system that was introduced to help make these decisions just become much more clearer, and we're just not seeing it because every week we're still talking about decisions and why this one wasn't taken and why this was made and why this goal wasn't given and why this was ruled out. It never seems to get any clearer to me. So for me, the system's failing. It's not worth having because it takes away the element of fun for supporters. So I've been very consistent with that message ever since it was introduced, because I feel for supporters that go to the games and then celebrate and then they're waiting for the goal to be ruled out. That's crap. As a supporter experience. But yeah, also some of the decisions, they just don't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've pulled it up here, Premier League Match Centre. Absolutely useless. What's the point? The referee's call of no penalty for the challenge by Anderson on Rodgers was checked and confirmed by the VAR. Okay, brilliant.
And that's what the commentators get as well. You know, when that's the message the commentators get. So it's then down to their own opinions again. And VAR was supposed to be introduced to take the opinions out of it, and it doesn't. It's still creating the same thing. So let's move on because it's boring.
Well, okay, let's move on from VAR, but David Stiles has quoted the language that was used. A fleeting grab. He's grabbing someone, but it's stopped. It's pulled him
but you
back.
know, where do you go from here? It's a grab or it's a grab, isn't it? You know, bloody hell.
Why fleeting?
We're getting into it's just getting ridiculous, but you know, it's getting ridiculous. But it happens. I was at the Liverpool versus Fulham game, and you know that I come away thinking, what on earth have I just watched? That where there seems to be so many crazy decisions that have taken place in the game where there could have been 2 clear red cards, another penalty, and none of these are given, and you're thinking, what's going on? What's going on with the game?
It's crazy, isn't it? And this again jumping ahead to the Matty Cash one. I can't remember what game it was, but I watched Match of the Day 2 last night. An exact same push. A goal was disallowed for. I think it was in the Palace Brighton game. There was a Brighton Palace. There was a goal disallowed. It was exactly the same thing that the Forest second didn't get disallowed for, and it's fleeting grab nonsense. It's just some of the language that they use. It's almost like they're trying to confuse people to get away with it and take away from it. Just trying to chuck in some language that no one really knows what that actually means. It's just so strange. I mean, what have you been grabbed by the bollocks? And it was fleeting. Is that not a penalty then? Like, it's like, what do you have to do to get a penalty? It is a penalty. I've not heard one pundit. No, but I've not heard anyone say that wasn't a penalty. And someone mentioned Ref Watch on Sky Sports News in the chat. I've lost it now, but like they were saying that everyone on there, even Dermot Gallagher on Sky Sports News, has said it is a penalty, and he'll try and defend refs when he can, if it's absolutely necessary. And you know, he's saying penalty as well. It's like everyone's saying here, like, are you allowed a fleeting headbutt, a fleeting challenge from behind, like? Surely, like, it's ridiculous. Contact.
We've gone so far. We've gone so far away from it all now that they just seem to have to try and justify every decision by. But you just want a bit of consistency, don't you? If you get that in every single game, fine. You know that a soft tug or a fleeting tug, whatever you want to call it, then you know that though if that happens in every single game, then you know it won't be given. But it doesn't. It's different in every game, so. Very frustrating. Yeah. Very frustrating for football fans watching on because it ruins the experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, don't even get me started on contacts from set pieces and stuff, grabbing from set pieces. Some weeks you'll see a few penalties given for grabbing off corners. Other ways, everything just gets let go. It's like just really, really bizarre and really, really strange for me. Let's go on to the second half. Then again, I felt like Villa, it wasn't a spectacular game by any means. The Durant goal probably put the game to life, to be honest. It probably ignited a fire in the game. But I still felt like when I was watching Villa of last season, I felt like there was a control there. I felt like we were the better team. We weren't caused any massive problems defensively. We looked good. We looked quite compact. We attacked well. We kept possession relatively well. We went 1-0 up, which was great. Well worked, guys. It's a hell of a header from John Durant to elevate the power. Because from McGinn's cross, it's a well constructed move from Villa at a point where I felt we were really getting on top of the game. I mean, Durant's playing, which is a story in itself, I guess, chosen over Watkins, who was obviously carrying a knot. They've gone for John Durant. The right call, I think, to start John Durant at this point. I'm a massive Ollie Watkins fan. I will always back him, but for this game, I felt that Durant was probably the right call to start. Lovely header, and the guy is just irrepressible in front of goal, isn't he?
Incredible. And yeah, I'm along with you, Dan, very supportive of Ollie Watkins, but I was leading into this game thinking if Durant doesn't start, then there's something wrong because he deserved his start. He scored in every game he started, hasn't he?
Yeah, they said that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like 4, I think.
Which is amazing. Like amazing goal scorer. Just seems to be able to pull something out of nothing as he did in the week with that wonder goal. But yeah, I think he wasn't involved too much, but he was there when it mattered, and that's what you need from your striker to just score.
Did you feel he's like starting to twig a little bit and do? I felt like again he was doing the things that are asked of him, the off the ball stuff, a little bit better. It's not to Watkins' level, but he's getting there.
There's a change to him. From speaking to people, within Villa and hearing what Emery said publicly about it, there has been a change in him over the last few weeks. He's working harder. He's listening to instructions more. He's putting them into practice on the training pitch and in games. It's starting to become this more rounded player. We know he's a bit of a wild sort of loose cannon. Perhaps maybe it's a bit too extreme, but
the wild card for sure.
He's a wild card. Yeah. That's probably the best way to describe him, I think. And that's great because you get that attacking, unpredictable edge to him. But he can also be very frustrating when he doesn't listen to what needs to be done. Now, as I say, last few weeks or so, he's changing, and that's a real good sign for Villa because he's not losing any of that mysterious, unpredictable element of his game, but he's also bringing a real determined and intelligent almost style really, and that's needed. Because if he's going to be playing more often, Villa need to know that they can rely on him, not just to score goals, but to do the job for the entire team.
Yeah, his goal record's out of this world, isn't it? So far this season, minutes to goal ratio is absolutely superb. I mean, in some more sensational podcasting, I've missed out the save that happened, the small matter of Emi Martinez's save before Villa scored, Greg. Is that the best save in Premier League history? I got asked this morning, is it the best save ever in football? But I probably haven't seen every single save that's ever been made in football to be able to judge.
You definitely haven't
to be able to judge that. But
you definitely haven't. I think we all know the big ones, don't we? We can recall some of the real big ones.
Seaman's the one that always stands out for me that I watched live.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, isn't there? But I mean, it's excellent, isn't it? It's almost worthy of a whole analysis article or podcast or whatever on its own, because I think a lot of it is instinctive, which most goalkeepers and goalkeeping coaches will tell you the same. But there's a part of him that he's worked on that, isn't it? The reflexes,
he's just so intelligent,
quick thinking. There aren't many people in the world that can do that, and that's what makes him one of the best. He
breakdance
said consistently for years. He just makes amazing saves every game. And this one was probably the best he's ever made.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was an offside goal afterwards as well, but the thing that takes away from the save just a touches, should he have done better with the first? I feel he should save it, the Nottingham Forest first goal. He made another good save after he'd made the breakdance save.
I think. Well, I mean, look, let's break it down. If we're going to say Martinez needs to make the save to it, I think.
Point blank.
There's four Villa players around Milenkovic. 4, and I don't think one of them's even jumped. Torres hasn't moved, let alone jumped. So, okay, perhaps he thinks the ball's so far away from me that it's pointless me jumping because it's still going to go over my head. But it goes over his head, and then Milenkovic heads it in from close range. So there's a little bit more to it than just Martinez needing to save it. Yeah, he probably should, but it's so close. And you've got to look at the defenders, I think, first. But in your horrendously prepared chronological order of
we are actually
we are literally all the way around. But I'm just going to go back to a few minutes before the equaliser, because I think it's a really important part of the game. So Villa get the goal. They control the game for the next 7, 8, 9 to 10 minutes, I think, really well. Passed the ball nicely. Were very calm in their possession in throughout defence. Not playing too aggressive balls forward, not committing too many players forward, just really managing the tempo and controlling the game well. Anyway, you might remember Onana goes running forward. He has this break up front, and Villa have a chance that I think it was it Rodgers crossing for Watkins? I think that kind of just, I can't remember the exact chance, but it was a decent chance anyway. Forest clear, and then the ball falls to Diego Carlos. Right, so he's on the halfway line, Carlos, and he's got quite a few Villa players in front of him. He looks behind at Martinez and decides not to pass it back. Now, that was a real simple, easy pass. Keep the ball, continue what they've been doing for 8 or 9 minutes, and just keep possession. Instead, he looks back, decides, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to turn round, I'm going to go forward, looks up and sees Ollie Watkins surrounded by defenders and tries this long ball to Watkins. Now, Forest turn that over very quickly. Ball falls into Morgan Gibbs White in the middle. He turns, passes to Hudson-Odoi, and then Forest score that's marginally ruled out by offside. Now,
so you've got away with one. You've got away with 2 with the save as well there.
So at this point, the reason that Wood was able to score and Forest were able to create the chance was because Villa had committed players forward, but Carlos, rather than just keep possession, has just wasted a long ball upfield, and Forest have broke through that. And look, the offside was marginal, wasn't it? It was very, very lucky. It was one of those ones that could have gone either way, and you'd be gutted if it goes against you. But Villa get away with one there. Martinez has made a brilliant save. They've scored the goal. They've got away with one. That should have been the time where they just realised, right, we need to see this game out in the right way. And just going back to what I said at the start of the podcast, that should have been the time where the defence started to become a bit more tighter, and that old drop in the wing backs into defence a little bit more should have been more prominent at that point, because Villa could have gone on and seen out that game, but they didn't learn. And Alanga comes on, who I think changed the game. I think Jota moving into that number 10 kind of position, he had a big impact as well. I felt like Alanga was just pulling Digne all over the place as soon as he come on. And then as we go into the second goal, Alanga gets ahead of Matson, I think, who had come on at that point, and he'd lost him. So he had a big impact in the game. But that offside goal should have been the warning for Villa to switch on, and they didn't.
Yeah, I think that's the disappointing aspect from it, isn't it? I think the players are intelligent enough to kind of read the room. When you've had something like that happen, I would have expected a bit more in-game management from the players. But it's happened in other games as well. The Ipswich game when we got caught out, you 2-1 up, and suddenly within one pass they're through on goal. Bournemouth, which kept giving away free kicks, kept giving them chances. Like Villa haven't seen out games as well this season. But I don't want to be too harsh on the players because I love the players, but I do think it's on the players. I think as a manager, there's so much you can do in those situations. If players are going to make bad decisions, which is what Villa are doing, I think decision making on the pitch that's down to the players. The coach can't do anything about that. And Villa haven't seen that game out intelligently, haven't managed the game against Forest well enough at all, and ultimately that's why they've lost them. I think. Yeah, Emery's substitutions in the week. This is where probably you do look at the manager a little bit here. The substitutions in the week against Leipzig have won Villa the game. They've gone brilliantly, as well as subs can go. Really, haven't they? Realistically, 2 people coming on and scoring in the Champions League is absolutely fantastic. The subs against Forest, I think Villa lost momentum with the subs that they made. I don't think any sub that came on made Villa better, and the team kind of capitulated as one. Anyway, so maybe it's a bit harsh to blame the subs. But, you're calling out Forest players that have come on. The Forest subs had a positive impact on the game, whereas I don't think Villa subs impacted the game at all. And to take Kamara off in stoppage time, got 8 minutes of stoppage time left. Kamara had been absolutely brilliant. Again, I thought, for the sake of 8 minutes, you're taking off your defensive midfielder to bring on Barkley, who isn't really a defensive midfielder. That felt strange to me. And that's Barkley's very good on the ball, but Kamara's good on the ball and he breaks it up. I felt he was a loss in that last 8 minutes in stoppage time.
Yeah, I agree. I think Watkins coming on for Durant at the point that he did, he had a little bit of an impact to start
I thought that would be a more telling sub than it was, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, but then it sort of faded away. But I'm not going to blame either of those players for how it turned out. I think Tielemans probably needed to come off, didn't he? Although he wasn't playing badly, I think he needed that rest. The play. What we got to remember is the manager needs to manage the loads of the players still. He needs to manage their minutes for sure. Onana didn't do too much wrong, I don't think.
I don't really remember him doing anything.
In possession, I don't think he did too much wrong. I think, say the offside goal, he was caught out a little bit too high up, so perhaps you can look at that there. But I think what he was trying to do was to take Villa forward, so don't put it on him too much. The Barkley for Kamara decision, that felt to me like Emery pushing to try and win the game more than anything, rather than seeing out. And look at, if you're a supporter, it's okay looking back in hindsight and thinking probably taking Kamara off now was a bad mistake, because he was controlling the game and he was keeping it quite tight. But as supporters, you want to go and see your manager trying to win the game, and I think that's maybe what he was trying to do. And look, Maatsen for Digne is the most common substitution in the Premier League, so that never surprises us when that happens. But and also Elanga was really getting the better of Digne. He was pulling him out of a position so often. But he lost him for the goal, didn't he?
Yeah.
And you just think, would Digne have done that? So
probably not. Well, we don't know, do we?
You don't know, do you? But you can look at it. It's so easy for us to look back and watch the game and analyse it and say, well, this went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong. But on the day, the players are doing it, and more often than not, these Villa players have got it right over Emery's time. So
yeah, agreed.
I'd probably say this is the most, out of all the losses this season, this is probably the one that's going to hurt the supporters the most because of the manner of it. But also because they didn't really, as good as Forest have been this season, they didn't really expect to lose this one. Whereas the others, they thought, there was a good chance of it could go either way.
Just playing devil's advocate from jumping off the back of what you've said, like you're saying the manager's trying to win the game. I get that. But we weren't having a good time at that point. We weren't. Like the game state, I don't think it was good for the 87th minute. The very bare minimum you've got to do is walk away with a point. I think conceding 2 so late is unforgivable. Really, it's not good. Not good mentality from Villa. So at that point, from the manager, instead of trying to kind of bring subs on in stoppage time to win the game, I think you've got to be looking at the state of the Premier League table for one, and the state of the game, and thinking, well, Forest are having a very good season at the moment. Whoever would have won this game was going to be in the top 4. Essentially, their arrival. Is a point a bad result? No, it keeps the unbeaten run going as well. Going into a busy period, I just think we'd have been better, and obviously we'd have been better off not to make the subs because we've ended up losing the game. It's easy for me to sit here and say and give it the big one. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to say the way that game was going. I just think trying to win it at that point was a recipe for disaster, and it turned out that is what happened.
Yeah, but I mean, that's my take on it, that he put Barkley on because I don't know that for sure. He might.
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right.
He might have had a very specific role that he wanted Barkley to play, and maybe he's realised that, look, actually, although we think that Kamara was doing quite well, he is part of the team that he's starting to fall apart basically in those closing 10 to 12 minutes. So he thought maybe this is the area that we really need to add fresh legs and just tighten up a little bit. Fresh mind as well. Let's not forget that. Player of Barkley's ability, when he gets the ball, he uses it pretty well. So, 8 minutes to go or whatever it was with the stoppage time, he trusted Barkley to go and do that job there. But yeah, I mean, it's risk and reward, isn't it? In the week that Villa get a late-ish goal to go and win the game after conceding twice as well. It happens, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it goes either way. Forest, and let's not forget Forest are a decent team trying to win the game.
Very good. Yeah, very good. And Villa have Nuno away is a disastrous fixture for Villa. Never goes well.
Yeah,
we lost a few games against Wolves away.
Yeah.
We even lost when he was Spurs manager away, and he lasted about 5 minutes in the job. We still managed to lose to Nuno away then. It's just not we lost. No, Nuno wouldn't have been manager when we lost last season, but we just don't have a brilliant record against Nuno away generally. He's just never been a good manager that Villa have fared well. Never been a manager that Villa have fared well against him. You do have to take into account for the second goal. I think it's a definite foul. I think the lack of VAR in the second goal, turning it over, is worse than the penalty for me. Because you can see as well, they looked at it on Match of the Day, the referee's actually blocked. The referee hasn't seen it properly because there's someone obstructing his view. you've got to factor that in if you're looking at something VAR that the referee might not have had a good view of it. Because I think that is a clear and obvious error. That is a foul. Usually they're the kind of things that happen in the box, and you say, well, that's given anywhere else on the pitch. I think that's given in 99% of football matches as a foul.
Yeah, it's a foul, isn't it? It's a foul. Yeah. It should have been given.
Well, that's the tail of the tape in all kinds of order.
That was jumbled up as jumbled
anyone
up.
Anyone wants to cut it together and put it in the right order and have a listen? Feel free.
But look, we've covered the main points in the game. I think just broadly and generally speaking, about Villa and about the Premier League as well. I think, and you'll probably agree with me, Dan, that this is turning into a very unusual season for the Premier League. I think,
very much.
What we're not going to see at the top is a 99, 100, 101 points win the league. I think it's pretty clear that's not going to happen. And what we're also going to see down the bottom is probably 2 out of the 3 or 4 teams that are there now really cut adrift, in the months ahead, and 3 of them going down on very low points. I mean, it used to be 40 points kept you up. That was the magic number. Then it turned down to sort of 36, was it? I mean, you might actually stay up with 29 points this season.
40 points can get you top 10 now.
It's mental, isn't it?
I've seen like 42 points be like 8th or something in recent years. It's not what it is.
So you can look at it. You might get a title win on sort of 87 points, 86, 87 points maybe. And you might stay up with 27, 28 points. So, well, look, who knows? The second half of the season could be completely different. But if you look at the league table now, Villa are nicely positioned, still 6th, because I said at the start of the season, Villa finish 6th and have a decent run in the Champions League. That's still a good season. There'll be the sadness of missing out on the Champions League again, because Villa, really do want to do that, and they want to continue and push on. They don't want to drop down. But finishing 6th and getting European football again next season is still good. I think it'll still be a good season, but it's very close now. Villa lose a couple of games, all of a sudden they'll be down to 13th, because there's 2 or 3 points, I think, between 13th, who are maybe still Man United, and 6th. So there's a cluster of teams now, and what I'm finding now with some of these middle to high ranked teams that are just behind the so-called elite teams that we've labelled, given them that label for so many years, is they're going through spells. Like, you didn't want to play Bournemouth at a certain time between sort of September and October because they were taking points off everybody. Fulham are now going through this period. They're the team of December, shall we say, taking points off the top teams. Forest have had a pretty stop-start period but have taken points and beaten a lot of the top teams. The only team to beat Liverpool, just beating Villa, of course. And Brighton have had a great run. Brentford have got the best record at home. So you've got some of these teams that
away, though.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of these teams now that are looking higher up and thinking, do you know what? There's Liverpool that are standing out but are now starting to drop a few points. Chelsea are getting really strong. Arsenal seem to just keep giving Liverpool a get-out-of-jail-free card every time they drop a point. Man City are in this horrendous run. There's an opportunity for a Forest or Villa again, or Brighton or Fulham or Bournemouth to think about not only getting into Europe, but maybe even sneaking into 4th place, because that opportunity is there for clubs now. And Villa have got Man City next, and you never know what's going to happen with them. I do think Villa have got a tough Christmas, so it looks pretty difficult, that, doesn't it? Man City, Newcastle, Brighton, they're tough games, aren't they?
It's not great. Fly in my room, just distracting me. Probably a few people saw it then. I'm worried. I don't like. There's something about Saturday I don't like. I don't like being taken on Man City in this form. I'd rather they're flying than take them on in this form. I don't. Something about it, I feel uneasy about taking them on when they're on this absolutely unforeseen, atrocious run. That concerns me for some reason.
Look, I didn't watch all of the game yesterday. I chose to watch Rangers Celtic. I just thought that'd be a fun game to watch, and it was. I was really happy.
The Man City game wasn't great, bar the last few minutes.
No, I turned it on actually for the last 5 or 10 minutes, I think. And
Gregg got lucky.
Got lucky with it, but yeah, Man United would have fancied it going to there. I've only seen the highlights from that game that didn't really look like they deserved to win, but Man City are all over the place. And I think players can sense that, and I think the Villa players more than the supporters this weekend will be more confident. I think they'll fancy giving it a go.
Obviously, we beat them when they were in a really good place as well, didn't we? Last season.
Yeah, and like you speak to the Villa players, and they say that a lot of them will remember that game because that's the game that has stood out for them the most at Villa. They believe it's the most complete performance that they've ever put in, and I probably agree with some of them.
Right. Before we hear what Gregg's up to at the moment, let's just hear quickly from NordVPN about what 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us. Right then, Gregg, quickly before we go, what have you been up to? What have you got coming up? I was wondering if you could speak about your secret project, maybe, but I probably should have checked.
Not far away with that. Far away with that, but no, mainly Liverpool stuff this week.
We don't hear about that.
Yeah.
No. Okay, brilliant then. I teased it before the NordVPN. We're not actually going to hear anything off Gregg. He's got absolutely nothing to tell us. Right then, that does us today. Gregg, thank you very much for joining me. Always a treat to catch up with you on a Monday. Be back on the channel with probably do a transfer show. A few people have been asking about transfers. I'll probably do something on transfers midweek. We'll try and get some more content out there rather than talking about it in the Forest show. I think we should just concentrate on the Forest game for this one, and that's what we've done. Thank you very much to those that have joined us live and had a chat with us in the chat. It's always appreciated. Wherever you're listening to this or watching this, do all the things that I bang on about every week. I'm still so upset about the week and I can't even be asked to describe what I need you to do, but you'll know by now if you listen every single week. As I say, I'll be back midweek. Keep your eye on the socials for when the new content is coming. Have a good rest of your Monday, and as always, up the Villa from me and up the Villa from Gregg.